everyone, this is Joe from Scarecrow Joe's Studio. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Please consider subscribing. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a paper mache bat. We're going to do two different variations. One, the wings will be cardboard. The second one, the wings will be made from cloth. So, on this first part of the tutorial, let's go over the tools and materials needed to create your armature. Tools and materials that you will need to create your armature for your bat. You're going to need some masking tape, a pair of scissors, box cutter or some kind of serrated steak knife or other kind of blade, a marker, hot glue gun, hot glue sticks, newspaper, thin flexible cardboard such as a cereal box, corrugated cardboard, UPS shipping box will work great for this. You'll need some clothespins, or you can also use large binder clips or spring clamps if you have those. You're going to need some bendable wire. Get kind of not very thin, not very thick, kind of like a medium bendable wire. And then wire cutters, of course. You're going to need a tree branch. And if you are intending on doing the technique or using the technique for cloth wings, you'll need some cloth. This is just a white sheet. I picked up a full set, a flat sheet and a fitted sheet at the thrift store, and it was like $3. So the older the sheet, the thinner the material, the better for this armature. You will also need a ruler or a yardstick or something to measure with. And then if you're going to use the cardboard wing technique, you're going to need something like I think this is like a 1-inch in diameter PVC pipe. You can also use a rolling pin or something like that. And that's it. That's all you're going to need to build your armature for your bat. All right, let's get down to creating the armature for our paper mache bat. What I have here is a thick piece of corrugated cardboard, nice and sturdy. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in the body of the bat here. I'm just going to do, it's going to be a basic teardrop shape. So this is going to serve as the body of my bat. I'm just going to cut this out. Okay, so I've got my body piece cut out here. And as you can see, I ended up cutting out a larger one. I thought this one was going to be too small. I want my bat to be a little bit bigger. The size of this body shape at its widest point is approximately 4 inches, and the length is approximately just about 8 inches there, if you're following along with those dimensions. But depending on how big or how small you want to make your bat, make it to scale. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to do the same thing for the head of my bat, only I'm going to cut out several pieces for the head. And I'm just drawing in the shape of what I want my head to be, basically. I've got the head shape similar to my body shape here, but that's going to be part of the head. I'm going to go ahead and trace out another one of these so that they'll be identical. And I'm going to cut that out. Okay, so I have my two pieces here. This is going to serve, one will serve as the back of the head, the other one will serve as the front of the head. And a couple other pieces that I'm going to cut out is an area here for what's going to be the snout of my my little bat. So that's pretty much how I want it. I'm going to put the eyes in there, and then we'll create some ears. All right, so I have my two pieces here that are going to be my snout. That's going to bulk up already without using any clay at all. Bulk up an area for the snout of my bat. So two pieces cut out, and I'm going to glue these together, and then I'm going to glue it onto here. I am not going to glue these two pieces together because I'm going to make a small brace in there to give the head a little bit more definition so that it sticks out a little bit farther from the body here. While I'm waiting for the hot glue gun to heat up for me, I'm going to go ahead and create my little brace for my head so that it gives it a little bit more of a three-dimensional look to it. The way I'm going to achieve that, along the edge of my corrugated cardboard, I'm going to cut out a strip of it. It doesn't need to be very thick because I don't want the head to be huge or anything. This is approximately 1/2 inch thick. That's going to work. I'm going to take my PVC pipe and I'm going to roll this piece of cardboard around the PVC pipe. And there you have it. You got your little brace here. I don't need it to be that long, obviously. Where I'm going to brace it is right around where the snout area will be. So I'm just drawing another line in there as a guide. I obviously don't need as much of this. So I'm thinking right about there. I don't want this to be in the way of where I'm going to put the eyes, because I am going to cut in the eyes after this is strip mached. Now keep in mind that after we put together this armature, we will be strip machining the entire armature, letting it dry so it gets really solid. And that way we can apply our paper mache clay and do our sculpting. So I'm just taking a piece of masking tape here. And I'm going to tape the edge just like that. And that's where I'm going to place my brace in there. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is going to be on there as the support, very strong, so I'm going to add some more hot glue around it. And then I'm going to add some hot glue around the top of the brace or the support. And I'm going to stick the other piece of the head, or what will be the head, right on there. It's going to create a nice three-dimensional piece for my head. And again, I'm gonna go in there, add a little bit more hot glue so that I know that it won't go anywhere while I'm working on this thing. Always a good idea to have a little container or cup of cold water while you're working with hot glue, in case you get a little on your finger, and then you can just dip your finger into the cold water and it'll cool it off very quickly for you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and add my snout pieces here. One. And there's the other one. So that's really gonna bulk out the snout area for my little bat. All right, so while I'm waiting for this to cool so I can handle it, what I have done is I have cut some strips of my thin flexible cardboard here. It's from a cereal box, so something thin and flexible will work. Get that ready, get a few strips. And then I'm going to take some of my masking tape here and I'm going to cut off a few pieces. I'm going to stick it to the edge of my table. You'll see the purpose of that in just a moment here. Alright, so now with my thin flexible cardboard, I don't need them this big. I'm just going to cut off a few pieces. I'm bending one end of the cardboard and then I'm bending the other end, kind of creating a round kind of a loop. And I think I'm going to I'll start at the top here. So I'm going to dab of glue there. I better get my water a little bit closer. I'm going to glue that on there because I don't want to sit there and hold it and wait because I am impatient. I'm just going to hold it in place with a piece of masking tape over where the hot glue is. I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. Stick a piece of masking tape on there to help hold it in place while it's cooling. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go all the way around. Basically, this technique is called blocking. You're blocking in these open areas. And this will allow us a place to put over our strip mache once we get to that point. So I'm just going to keep on going here. Kind of rounding it out like that, seeing where it needs to flow. And I'm going to do the same thing all the way around here. Not so much here because it's pretty much blocked in with that little brace. But all of these open areas, I'm going to go ahead and put strips all the way around, making sure that they're rounded out a little bit. Alright, so as you can see, I've got those strips all the way around there, so I've blocked in all of that negative space. That's going to allow me an area to apply my strip mache over this head. Next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create the ears. I want to get the ears on here before I actually glue the head to the body. So I'm going to get the ears on there. For the ears, I don't want to use this thick type of corrugated cardboard because I want to be able to flex it, but I also don't want to use a thin like cereal box type of cardboard because that's going to be too thin and it'll just sag and fall apart once I apply strip mache over my cardboard ears. So I'm going to use a piece of corrugated cardboard that's not as thick as this. Hopefully you can see the difference here. This is from a takeout pizza box, so it will be sturdy enough yet flexible enough for me to form the ears out of this. Now you can make any kind of ear shape that you want. And if you want to look at some bat reference type ears, that might be a good idea to do so. My ears, I do want them to be, I don't know why, but on the bats that I create, I like them to be kind of big. Not ginormous, but big enough. And I'm just going to do the basic like leaf type shape. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out and see how it looks. It's always easier to sketch those in on the end of a piece of cardboard instead of opposed to like the middle. It's just less to cut. Alright, let me take a look at this. Got my little leaf shape. Yeah, I kind of like that. Enough room back there to attach, position and attach my ear. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing on the edge of my piece of pizza box here, my cardboard pizza box. I'm going to trace around that ear that I just created and cut that out so that I have two identical ears. Alright, I've got my two ear shapes here. Just kind of looking at it. I think I like that. Before I attach them, I want them to kind of curve in a little bit. So you can probably manipulate these pretty easy with your hands, but I'm lazy, so I'm going to use my piece of PVC pipe to curve them a bit. Got my two ears here. Now, when I do apply the strip mache over these ears, they will not be as curved. That's not going to be a big deal because I'm going to go in, like I said, and apply clay after the strip mache is dried. So I'm going to go ahead and get these ears glued on. Right, there we go. Starting to look like a bat head. Alright, that's all cool. Ready to handle. I'm going to go ahead and glue his head to the body here. That. Again, for good measure, so I know it's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to squirt some more hot glue around there. We're going to do the same method with blocking around here, but because I want the body to be more three-dimensional and rounded, I didn't use the same effect where I had two body pieces and then put a brace in between and then did the thin flexible cardboard blocking. That's what I did originally on this bat here. And as you can see, it's very flat. It's not round like it should be. So I'm trying something a little bit different to get that better rounded looking look to it, so that it doesn't look so flat. I just want it to be rounder. So gotta wait for that to dry completely, because I gotta be able to handle this and flip it over. But you're gonna need more pieces of thin flexible cardboard for this section, for the body part here. After we get that all blocked in and rounded out, that'll give us a nice, hopefully a nice curved surface area to apply our pieces of strip mache. You're going to need quite a few of these thin flexible pieces of cardboard here, and you're going to need again you're going to need some masking tape. I've cut pieces of masking tape and placed them on the corner or the edge of my table so that they're ready to go. This bat tutorial I have going on here for you, I would probably consider this a more intermediate to advanced level of paper mache tutorial. It's a little bit more involved than, say, creating a jack-o'-lantern or pumpkin sculpture. There are plenty of those types of tutorials on YouTube, including my own channel, different variations. There's also plenty of tutorials on bats. Actually, I wouldn't say there's too many. There's a few tutorials. There's a lot of like different time-lapse stuff on people's YouTube channels and how they've created paper mache bats, but not a whole lot of tutorials that I have come across anyway. So, but yeah, take a look. See if there's something that might be a little easier for you if you're a beginner and you really want to make a bat and you find this a little too challenging. But even if you are a beginner and you've at least made one, let's say, paper mache jack-o'-lantern, you're going to know how strip mache works. You're going to know how important building a strong armature is to support the clay that you're going to clay over. All those really important factors. So if you haven't done anything in paper mache before, I suggest starting with something easier like that to get your feet wet, and then moving forward with something a little bit more complicated, such as this. Now, I never claim to be the best at paper mache. I learn things from other people and I experiment, and I just kind of go from there. And sometimes I've had complete and utter failures, and sometimes I've made things right off the cuff that have turned out to be pretty cool. So just experiment and creating different things and creating different types of armature. I like using the cardboard armatures because they tend to be very, very solid. After you apply the strip mache over them, and when it's dry, they're very sound. The structure is very sound and can hold your paper mache clay. And because this guy is eventually going to be hanging upside down on a branch that will be connected to him, I want him to be very, very solid. So that's why I've chosen to use this technique, building the armature out of cardboard. Hope that makes sense. Alright, so I think this is dry enough. We can go in and I can start applying my my pieces of thin flexible cardboard And again, I'm bending one area to apply on the back. Got my little cup of water here. My piece of masking tape over that. And instead of flipping it over, I'm going to do one side at a time. And then once it dries, I'll flip it over. So I'm just going to continue, and I'm going to attach my strips, my thin flexible cardboard strips, all the way around here on one side, just on the one side. Okay, we are moving right along here. This is cool, and I can manipulate this now without the fear of being burned. And as you can see, I have a few balls of crumpled up newspaper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my masking tape. I'm going to use a thicker masking tape here. 1-inch roll as opposed to the 1-inch roll that I was using for these pieces here that I was using to hold the strips of cardboard in place while the glue cooled. And what I'm going to do, because I want to bulk up the inside of this, the areas inside here, so that when I put my newspaper or my thin flexible strips of cardboard over, it'll give it some support underneath. That's the idea anyway. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm kind of experimenting right now at this point, so that's what I'm going to do. So with my balls of newspaper, I'm going to take my tape, if I can find the end of the roll, there we go, and I'm going to apply my masking tape over my balls of newspaper. Doesn't have to be completely around them, but I want at least, it's going to help hold these balls of newspaper in place. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue them onto the body of the bat. Okay, so I have my balls of newspaper here covered with some masking tape. And I'm going to go ahead and glue these on to the body of the bat to hold them in place. I'm going to let those cool for a minute. And then what I'm going to do is start taking these strips of newspaper and creating my grid right around, or over those balls of newspaper that I've attached there. So the idea is that when I attach my grid here and then apply my wet paper mache strips of newspaper over my grid, instead of it being hollow and just applying it over the thin flexible strips of cardboard, the idea is that it will hold it in place, still give it that rounded look, and it won't collapse in on itself because it has this inside support. Alright, I think that's cool enough, so I'm going to start creating my grid here. By just folding over my pieces of thin flexible cardboard so That's where that one wants to go, so I'm going to go ahead, glue that one on. Sort of like that. My piece of masking tape to help hold it in place while it cools. I'm just sort of letting these strips, they're going to cross each other like that. I'm just sort of letting them kind of flow naturally. I'm not pulling them very taut. There is some space in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm just kind of letting it flow naturally on where it wants to go. Place another piece of masking tape on there. Go back to this side, kind of look at it. And that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'm just going to keep creating my grid. Take your time with this. Don't be in a hurry. See this one down here wants to go over here. So it's creating a nice kind of a crisscross pattern. This one wants to flow naturally over here on this direction. So I'm going to let it come over to the other, where it would be a shoulder area. And glue that in. Again, not pulling it very taut so that it maintains that three-dimensional or rounded shape to it. This one kind of wants to go around like this. I don't need all of that hanging off over there, so I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it with my scissors about right there. And you can, hopefully you can see how the body shape is kind of tapering. So here's the chest area is a little more bulked out, and as we taper down, it's not going to be as bulky when we apply the clay. Still have a lot of gaps, and the way that I'm going to rectify that situation is I'm going to go in with my 2-inch masking tape and block it in with some more masking tape. But I can't do that until this thing completely cools. So once again, I'm going to let that cool. But to reinforce my grid and to block in even more of these areas, I'm going to take my 2-inch masking tape, and anywhere where I see big gaps, I'm just going to go in with my masking tape and block it in with the masking tape. This is just going to reinforce it a little bit more, and also it will give us even a greater surface area to apply our newspaper strips soaked in paper mache paste for our strip mache. Alright, up next, before we do any strip mache work, we're going to create the wings. Like I said in the beginning of this tutorial, I'm going to be making 2 variations of this bat. The armatures are going to be completely the same. The only difference in the 2 variations are the wings. First variation that I'll be doing is the wings made out of cardboard. Second variation is the wings made out of cloth. So next up is we're going to create the cardboard wings for this guy, and then I'll show you how to create the wings for the other variation of the cloth wings. Alright, as you can see, I created 2 bat forms here, or bat armatures. This is the one that you watched me build, and then off camera I built another one. Obviously one is a little bit bigger than the other one. This one right here, this is the one that I'm going to make the cardboard wings from, or for, and this one will have the cloth wings. So getting right to creating wings for this guy. Basically what I did is I started out with creating a template. Basic wing shape. You can do any kind of wing shape that you want. But this is what I'm going to use. This is my wing shape. And that's pretty much how it's going to look. Just like that. So I kind of determined how big I wanted the wings in comparison to the body. The other thing is that I'm going to curl these wings slightly, because this is the one that's going to be hanging from the tree branch. So I'm going to curl these slightly. So that's the first thing that I did. I drew out a wing shape onto a piece of newspaper and used that as my template. And then on my piece of thinner corrugated cardboard, and again, this isn't like the real thick stuff that I used to create the armature for the head and the body. This is a thinner it's still corrugated cardboard. It's not the thin flexible cardboard like in cereal boxes, but it will be thick enough to withstand the paste, the paper mache paste with the newspaper strips, and then after that dries, it will be thick enough to withstand applying clay over these, as well as being thin enough so that I can manipulate the shape and bend it. So I just traced my template onto my pieces of cardboard. I have one there, and then on this piece of cardboard here, as you can see, I flipped my template around. I flipped it over so that I have 2 identical opposites here. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and cut out my wing shapes, and then we'll form them in strip mache. Alright, I went ahead, I cut out my wings here. Actually, they're going to go like this. So I cut out my wings. And the other thing that I did is because I'm going to keep this template, and I have written on my little template here what it belongs to, bat, and the diameters of the body, how tall it is. It's approximately 12 inches tall, and 5 inches wide at the widest point. So that way I know if I go to make another one that's a similar size and I want to use this bat wing shape again, it's very easy. It's kind of a no-brainer. I just get this out and do the same thing, trace it on the cardboard, cut it out, and there I have my bat wings. Alright, I'm not going to attach these wings to the body. I'm going to actually strip mache them, form them, strip mache them, and let them dry separately. And then after they're dried, I'm going to go ahead and sculpt them, except for this part right here, where it's going to be attached to the body of the bat. Because once these are bent into shape, and again, here I go, and I'm using my PVC pipe to make some bends in them. So once they're bent into shape the way that I want, it's going to be, if they're attached like that, it's going to be very difficult to get in on the inside of this and strip mache and then clay over it afterwards. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to bend them, form them using my PVC pipe to the point where I want it to be. Making something like that, and they will relax a little bit. And I know you're probably thinking, well, you're going to put wet strip mache on there, and it's not going to hold that form. Well, in fact, it will, and I will show you how you can get that to hold its form while it's drying. All right, now, the way I'm going to try to hold this wing shape in place during the strip mache process until it dries. So I'm going to take a piece of my thin, flexible cardboard, and I'm going to create a little brace for it. So I'm going to take some hot glue, and I'm going to glue my piece of thin, flexible cardboard to this part of the wing, and then I'm going to determine how much of a bend do I want to keep in there. If I want a more pronounced bend, then I'll glue it down here. If I don't want it so pronounced, I'll glue it like right about here in the middle, and I think that's what I want right there. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's how I'm going to hold this thing in shape. So once again, starting out, I gotta let that cool. I'm gonna go ahead and on my other wing, I'm gonna do the same thing. Hot glue that on there, let it cool. It's gotta cool completely before you attach it. Cut this off and glue it to the other part of the wing. And that's how I'm going to keep this shape in place during the strip mache process. All right, and there you have it. So I've just created a brace using the thin, flexible pieces of cardboard here. I'm going to let that cool, and then I can go ahead and start strip machining.